Hey everybody, Slayer Holfin here, back for an EGL Season 8 Draft Recap. Now, the EGL has been around for a while. Like I said, Season 8, PBL is on Season 5, so it's got a few seasons on the PBL. It might be a new league to those of you who watch my videos, although I suspect a lot of you who watch my videos are actually part of the PBL or EGL, so maybe not. Um, the EGL has a bit of overlap with the PBL. Think so. Me, Alex, Frozen, Prof, me, and B Town, Link are all in both leagues, as well as Shark is in the EGL, and he took over for Reggie in PBL Season 3. I think we played him like week 12 or 13 in Season 3. And Estu is in EGL and just joined PBL for Season 5. But there's also been, Reggie's been in both leagues. King was in EGL last season. I'm not sure. I think that's everyone. But yeah, quite a bit of overlap between the two leagues. So definitely a very competitive league and looking forward to getting in it. So we ended up being 10th in this draft. And recently when I've been doing drafts, there's kind of a set of Pokemon that I always look at and try to get if they're available. The likes of Tapu Lele if it's available, Celesteela, Tapu Koko, Landorus T, Kyurem Black, the Mega Latios if they're available. More Latias probably than Latios, but both of the Mega Latios are pretty solid. Hoopa U, I think that's pretty much it. Hoopa U is kind of like, I know it's not always available, but basically just grabbing the mons that are consistently top picks and that are hard to get, and that if I get the opportunity, I want to pick them because I kind of got to take advantage of them being on the board still because they're difficult to come by. So this draft, I don't have the draft up in front of me, but I think it was like Celesteela 1, Lele 2, Coco 3, Megalati 4, I think Zygarde came in 5, and then 6 was I think 6 was Lando T or Kyurem Black, and then 7 was something, and 7 was maybe like Mega Lopunny, and then 8 was the other one of Lando T or Kyurem Black. So they're all off the board really early, which is understandable. They're very good Pokemon. So it got to me, and one of the things that I've been trying to do for this draft and the PBL draft, which I'll be loading soon, is I watched this video by the Token Minorities, who I kind of ran into through a GBA, or got introduced to, I guess is a better way to say it, through the GBA, and watching their videos on drafting with the elite is what they call it. And they kind of have a list of things that you should make sure you should have on every team. And I think they do like offensive and balance and defensive like cores to base it off of. But there's a lot of common ground that a lot of those teams have, and I don't have it up in front of me, but it's stuff like a Fairy Dragon Steel Core, Fire Water Grass Core, or Quatter, if you will. Ground immunity, electric immunity, a solid flying resist, 2 strong forms of priority, 2 speed tiers over base 110, multiple rock setters, multiple hazard removers. Spikes or T-spikes are optional, although I think they say for Season 7 now you really should have access to them. Pursuit Trapper, a Fast Taunter, a Grounded Poison. I think that's about it. On top of their list, I also kind of had some things that I want to go for. A Heal Bell, a Wish Passer would be nice. Not necessary, I guess, but kind of nice to have. And then Momentum, and is that it? A knockoff user would be good, or a few knockoff users, just because that's a pretty good utility move in the league format when items can be so important. Am I forgetting anything? Momentum. Oh, Reliable Recovery. I really like Reliable Recovery. A lot of this stuff, so Priority, Speed, Momentum, Reliable Recovery, are things that I don't feel like I do a great job of just picking up in a draft if left to my own devices. So this draft, I kind of had a checklist written out, and as I drafted Pokemon, I'd check things off the checklist and really try to focus on that list and make sure that I was making good progress on picking up things I wanted to pick up. And while I was considering kind of the synergies that the Pokemon had together, I was also trying to look at that checklist and make sure that I was getting everything on that checklist uh, and just kind of like had all my bases covered from that aspect. So anyway, with that being said, first Pokemon to get, I wanted a Pokemon that I thought was worthy of a round one pick and also checked off a lot of those boxes. So what I ended up going with was Mega Scizor. So Mega Scizor, good solid steel to start out the draft. It checks off a lot of those boxes. It's got reliable recovery, it's got momentum, it's got good priority and bullet punch. It's only got one weakness in fire, which is kind of a good start to like a defensive or a balanced core of if you invest in its HP, with just its natural defenses, it can take a lot of physical hits, and it can focus on setting up or running some IVs or EVs in attack, or even in SPDEF. With its SPDEF, it's actually high enough so that if you invest in it, it can be a decent check to special fairies or special normal attackers and stuff like that. So really good option. It also gives me a hazard remover right off the bat with Defog, which is really nice. So attack is obviously sky high, speed is really nice. It also gives me a Pursuit Trapper and a Knockoff User, which are good kind of utility moves that I could make use of later on. I know, I always really like having a good solid steel because steel just checks so many important things. You know, it can check flying types, it can check rock types, which although they're not super common, they can be very annoying. I think a lot of teams don't have like rock weaknesses or rock resists or the best rock resists on their team. But you know, ice, normal, poison immunity, psychic, and fairy resists. I mean, it just steel typing is really good, and obviously with the bug typing, it's going to mean that I don't take rock hits or flying hits as well as if I were just pure steel, but also kind of negates the ground and fighting weaknesses. So that's kind of nice. So really with this thing's glaring 4 times fire weakness, that's something I want to keep in mind as I'm drafting my next several mons and really build a core around it that isn't weak to fire, so it kind of dissuades my opponent from bringing HP fire, or can kind of punish them for packing it where I can just easily switch into something that resists it and HP fire is not that strong. So the next thing I decided to take is I've got some momentum early on. I wanted the second piece of a Fairy Dragon Steel Core, and I wanted something that resists fire, and something that's fast and hit on the special side. So I ended up picking up Latios. So Latios is really, it's really nice. Base 110 speed is very speedy. Like I said, speed is something I usually have trouble picking up. I just don't put a priority on it early, and then the options left don't fit my team super well. It also has Roost or Recover, so nice reliable recovery. And this thing just hits really hard. It's a great, a wall breaker. That's another thing that they suggest on the team builder. And this thing is definitely a wall breaker. 130 special attack. It can just hit ridiculously hard. But this thing can also be a setup sweeper with Calm Mind and its good speed. It can set up a Calm Mind or two and just run through a team at the end. It's got awesome coverage in stuff like Shadow Ball, Energy Ball, Surf. It's just got a lot of different options. Both of its stats are pretty good. The ability Levitate gives me a ground resist since my bug type currently does not actually resist ground because of Scizor's typing. And it's got some nice synergies with Scizor. It takes the fire type attacks for Scizor that it doesn't want to take, and the ice and fairy and dragon attacks that Latios doesn't want to take, Scizor doesn't mind. And the knockoffs that Latios doesn't like taking, Scizor actually doesn't mind since its item can't be knocked off. So I felt like this synergized pretty well with Scizor, and a nice start to, got 2/3 of my Fairy Dragon Steel core down. So with the next pick, I wanted to continue along a trend of fire resists and speed and momentum, just to kind of like make sure that I'm getting those fire resists to support Scizor out of the way early, and making sure I'm putting a priority on momentum and speed early, because like I said, probably 1,000 times by now, those are things I'm not great at picking up. So what I ended up going with was Greninja. Oh, one other thing, Latios, another defogger. So 2 hazard removers. I wanted a hazard setter. So Greninja offers a lot. This is Torrent Greninja. Protean and Battle Bond are not allowed. But it offers me spikes. It offers me toxic spikes. Toxic spikes. It's got U-turn. It's got fast taunt. And Water Dark is just really good coverage. It's the same coverage stab. Mega Gyarados and Sharpedo, which are really threatening, have the same stabs. And this thing can attack, even though it's frail, it can attack on both the physical and special side, which is really nice. So this thing is great for kind of pressuring a Pokemon out and setting up a layer of spikes or T-spikes. It's great for U-turning out and getting momentum into something. Got a fast U-turn. It can taunt opposing Fat. It can toxic them. And its coverage moves are pretty nice, actually. Extra Sensory, Grass Knot, Gunk Shot. It's got some solid options for sure. It's also got a ton of priority. Water Shuriken, Shadow Sneak, even Quick Attack you see here. So I really like this Pokemon. Definitely I think is fast, pressures opponents' teams, can set up hazards, can U-turn out, and it can pack priority, which is really nice. So I've already got 2 priority users. I've got 2 defoggers. Yeah, I really like the way that my team is shaping up. So next up, I decided that it's time to complete my Fairy Dragon Steel Core. And this Pokemon, I probably could have waited a little bit later to take it, but I really like the idea of the final member of my core being a fairy type that resisted fire, just so that I really have synergy with Mega Scizor. That was really kind of a big thing for me early on. Is it's such a glaring weakness that I want to make sure that I'm not actually that weak to fire types. So when Scizor comes in and they send out their Entei, then I'm like, uh-oh, where's my fire switch-in? I can look at my team and say, oh, look, there are my 3 or 4 fire switch-ins. So I ended up going with Diancie. So Diancie, finally get a Stealth Rocker on the team, get another fire resist, complete my Fairy Dragon Steel Core. So Stealth Rocker, so I now have some decent hazards on the team. This thing's defense and special defense are just so high. I mean, I can easily just throw 252 HP on this thing, and then just invest kind of what I need. With base 150 in defense and special defense, this thing takes hits super well. Fairy resist. Oops, the fairy typing means I resist knockoffs, which Latios doesn't like to take. Also, a thing about Greninja, resist Dark, resist Ghost. Not really wanting to switch into those hits, it's pretty frail, but even this, that kind of like passive typing bonus with Latios is nice. Diancie also, it's got Heal Bell, it's got Z Heal Bell, which can heal it all the way up. It can set up Calm Minds, it can set up Rock Polishes or a Trick Room and kind of be a little bit more offensive. And then it's just got some other kind of cool things, Endeavor, Explosion, kind of some stuff like that. As well as Moonblast. The only fairy resists are Poison and Fire and Steel, which are all weak to ground, and this gets Earth Power coverage. So definitely a nice move pool. I think it's pretty good value for being a tier 4. This league uses basically the same kind of like drafting process as GBA, the same like team construction. So at tier 4 I thought it was pretty good value, and maybe picking up a little bit early, but I really felt like it fit well with my team, so I was happy to grab it when I did. So next up, I've got Rocks, Spikes, and T-Spikes, 2 removers. I've got 1 core completed. I decided it's time to start on my Fire, Water, Grass core. And Greninja I'm not really counting to be a part of that, because the water piece of the Fire, Water, Grass core I really think should be a bulkier water, and I know it's just a good idea to have a bulkier water to sponge like fire hits and some stuff like that. So I decided to go for a fire type though. not fire. And I decided to pick up Arcanine. Now, Arcanine at tier 2 is, it's usually either tier 2 or 3, but even in tier 2, this thing is awesome. I picked it up because I really like the idea of having the ability Flash Fire for Mega Scizor, not only to take fire hits, but to really punish them of, now I get a +1 boost, I'm basically Banded or Specs depending on how I attack. When I click my fire moves, I'm Banded or Specs after the Flash Fire boost. This thing also, though, gets Intimidate, which is really useful, just being able to kind of hurt physically offensive Pokemon. Also gets good, reliable recovery in Morning Sun, and Extreme Speed, which is, it's always nice to have priority. I've already got Greninja and Latios, but now or Greninja and Scizor, but now adding a third priority option is really nice. This thing's coverage is so-so. I wouldn't say it's great, but it's alright. Close combat, crunch, it's got Solar Beam, it's got Wild Charge, so it's definitely got some options. You can also run like a Flame Charge set, kind of set up that way, and then go to work, or a Z Sunny Day, taking advantage of Solar Beam. So I think that this definitely has some options, and I'm looking forward to using it in the league. The only other thing I'd say about this is the speed tier of 95. My speed tiers are looking pretty good right now with, 122, 110, 95, 75, 50. Definitely some gaps to fill in, but I'm not even halfway through my team. We get 11 Pokemon and this is number 5, so I kind of like the variety and speed that I'm getting right now. Okay, so the next Pokemon I took, I wanted to get another speed tier, and I really was looking at my team like, okay, I need an electric resist, I don't have that yet, and a ground resist would be really nice, because my only ground resist right now is Latios, and I'm a little bit weak to, I've got 2 weaknesses in Diancie and Arcanine that I've just picked up. So I decided that what would be a good choice is Thundurus Therian. So Thundurus Therian, really nice typing, only weak to Rock and Ice. And that Volt Absorb means it's really good. When I pick up my ground, hopefully I can have some synergies between this thing and my ground type of kind of forcing them to think about 2 different HP fires or 2 different coverage moves. This really is a good offensive pivot into electric types. It gets kind of, I wouldn't say reliable recovery is the best word to describe it, but it has potential for recovery with Volt Absorb, which is really nice. And this thing is just a setup monster. Agility, you get Nasty Plot. Its coverage, just T-Bolt is so strong, and getting coverage like Incinerate, and the option to run HP Ice. Dark Pulse and Extrasensory and Focus Blast are a few other of its options, so definitely has a lot of good moves. Also has access to Taunt. It can defog, that's not really what it wants to be doing, I'd say. But it's an option. Knockoff, U-Turn are kind of some other moves that are maybe more kind of like the techs, I guess, or team support for knockoff. U-Turn is nice in case they have a really solid switch in to this thing. Instead of Volt switching out and they just go into their ground or their Volt Absorber or whatever of their own, I can U-Turn out and still get that momentum. So looking forward to using this thing. It hits just so ridiculously hard with the base 145 special attack, and the speed of 101 is really nice for outpacing those base 100 speed mons that are everywhere in the format. So next up, I want to get the ground type to give me the synergies right away with Thundurus, and so I ended up taking Swampert. Now Swampert gives me a second Stealth Rocker to go with Diancie. It also gives me a Bulky Water to pair with Arcanine, and Swampert is 4 times weak to Grass, but the rest of my team, I guess Diancie is weak to Grass too, and Greninja, but I've got a lot of grass resist. Scizor 4 times resists, Latios resists, Arcanine resists, Thundurus Therian resists, and the 2 electric immunities in Swampert and Thundurus Therian have some pretty good synergies together, I'd say. They really will want to run HP Grass for Swampert, but then Thundurus Therian, they need coverage for it. So I think this is a good it's good synergy between those 2. But Swampert, Pretty nice stats. It's a little bit slower, but actually fits the speed tiers decently well. Mega Scissor at 75 and DNC at 50. There's kind of a gap there, so it kind of helps fill a little bit of that gap. And its HP is massive. It can hit 404, which means that I can sub up and not have my sub broken by a seismic toss, which is kind of nice. Its defenses are pretty good. 90 on each means, in conjunction with its high HP stat, that I can kind of build this thing to be physically or specially defensive, depending on what I need. And its attack and special attack, its attack definitely stands out, but its special attack isn't bad. And so I could potentially run like, Earth Power and Scald and Ice Beam on this thing if I want to go that route. Torn is nice to just kind of get off like a last-ditch hit with this thing. And it's just a very good stealth rocker. It can use Roar. Not a lot of setup options, but this thing is pretty good at just being like a reliable switch in, get up rocks, or fire back like a good hit. Resto Chesto definitely an option with this too. So second piece of my Fire Water Grass Core. Another Fire Resist for Scizor. Really like this thing. So the next Pokemon that I pick up is, let me think. I've been doing it in order so far, and now I'm trying to remember what the next thing I picked up was. I don't think I completed my core quite yet. Okay, yeah. The next Pokemon that I picked up, I'm looking at my team right now, and Greninja and Latios are really like my water resists on the team, which isn't really where I want to be. Latios doesn't mind taking it. Greninja's pretty frail, it doesn't like taking it. And Thunderous Stee can like punish bulky water types because it just comes in and bolt switches on them or fires off a T-bolt or whatever. But I really want to kind of have a better like defensive switch into them, and so, or kind of like something that gains me momentum. So I decide because of that, because I want a grounded poison type to soak up T-spikes, because I want a dark resist, because my only dark resists right now are Greninja and Diancie. I decide that Toxicroak, not Toxapex, Toxicroak is a good Pokemon. Dry Skin lets me come in and take water attacks and gain some health back. And this thing is really, it's tier 4, which I thought was pretty underrated. Usually it's tier 3. I'm not sure why it's tier 4 here, but this thing can hit on the physical or special side. Its speed tier is kind of middling, but fits in well with, right now there's a gap between Arcanine at 95 and Mega Scizor at 75, so this slides really nicely in there. This thing can set up on both the physical and special side. Swords Dance and Nasty Plot. It gets access to both, which is super nice. It has priority in Bullet Punch and Vacuum Wave and Sucker Punch and Fake Out. So it's just got a ton of priority options, and I really like that. Toxicroak, Greninja, Scizor, Arcanine. I've got a ton of priority on my team, so that's awesome. This thing, being a grounded poison, also lets it soak up the like toxic spikes, which is nice. And it is a dark resist. I wouldn't say it's pretty frail itself, but even just having kind of a passive dark resist on the team is nice for Latios. So really like this thing. I'm looking forward to using it, and the thing about it is that the poison fighting typing is very unique, and since poison is good against fairies and fighting is good against steels, and it's got coverage like Ice Punch for dragons, it can actually kind of break down the fairy dragon steel core that are common on a lot of teams if they're a little bit slower. And with its priority options, it can even hit stuff that's a little bit faster than it. So I know, really like this Pokemon. Glad I picked it up. Next up, I decided to complete my water, fire, and grass core by picking up the grass, and I was looking at the team, and I kind of wanted another removal option. I wanted a rapid spinner because I've got 3 Defoggers right now. One of them is Thunderous Therian, so maybe I really have like 2.5 Defoggers, but I wanted a way to get rid of hazards that didn't remove my own, since I do have Greninja to get up a spike or a T-spike, which is pretty nice. I wanted a way to just remove my opponent's hazards, and I figured why not get a way to block them as well. So picked up Delmise. This thing also is a pretty good physical breaker. With the right set, 131 attack is massive. Definitely like the hardest hitting on the physical side of anything I've picked up so far, besides Scizor. But Scizor's move pool is fine, but like, I know, Technician kind of makes you run like Bullet Punch, which like boosts it up to 60 and its priority, which is nice, but it's not like a power whip coming from a Delmise, right? This thing's defenses are pretty solid too. 100 defense, 90 speed F, and 70 HP. Definitely can take a few hits, which is really nice. It's got reliable recovery and synthesis. It's got anchor shot to kind of trap something. It's got switcheroo, which is kind of cool to like run a choice band set and hit really hard and then switch it onto something. It's another option to break through bulky waters. This in conjunction with Thunderous Therian. It doesn't really like being burned though, and its speed is pretty bad. So that's kind of a downside of it, but overall I think it supports the team pretty well. And the speed tier, my speed tiers right now are, let's see, Greninja 122, Latios 110, Thunderous Therian 101, Arcanine 95, Toxicroak 85, Scizor, or Mega Scizor 75, Swampert 60, Diancie 50, Delmise 40. So a lot, it just gives me like another speed tier and kind of just filling out that curve pretty well. Steelworker obviously really nice for Gyro Ball or Anchor Shot, just firing off a nice attack, and its special attack is actually not too bad. It's 86, which is the same as Toxicroak, so actually can be run on the specialist side to kind of take people unawares if I want to do that. So at this point, we've got 9 out of 11 Pokemon on the team, kind of winding down. With the next pick, I wanted a good normal type just to get a Ghost Resist, because my Ghost Resist right now is Greninja. And I really wanted to get Licky Licky, but it got taken kind of like between my Delmise pick and this next pick, which is a little bit unfortunate, but decided that Audino was going to be my pick. Now, a lot of people don't think this is a very good pick, and I know Audino is pretty passive, and I don't love this pick, but it does have Regenerator Wish, which is pretty nice. Being able to fire off a Wish with its 103 base HP, and then just switch out and heal back itself. I think it can be a decent pivot in that like it just fires off a Wish and switches out into something else. It also can Heal Bell and Healing Wish, which is really nice to support the team. Its attack and special attack are not very good. This thing, I have to be careful with how I play with it, because otherwise Pokemon can just set up on it or like get a sub up. But I definitely think this thing can be used all right in. I don't know. I think if I choose the right spots to bring it, it can put in some work, and I'm looking forward to that. Audino, the normal typing is really nice as a Ghost Resist. Since I said, Greninja is my only Ghost Resist currently, and that thing's pretty frail. And yeah, I'm not sure what else there really is to say about this thing. Its coverage is actually, it's got a lot of different moves that are pretty interesting. It can set up screens, it can do some other stuff. So while it's not very strong, it does have a lot of good like coverage moves, so it's definitely got some options. So finally, I was looking at my team, and I like kind of the way it's shaped up. The only thing that I really want now is another Stealth Rocker, because I've only got Swampert and Diancie, so I just want another option there. So I decided to pick up Mesprit. Mesprit, similar to Latios, and it's a levitating psychic type, but it kind of performs a pretty different role. It sets up rocks. It's more of kind of a, can attack on either side, can be kind of defensive on either side, a little bit lower speed tier. Gets Healing Wish. It's got some other stuff that it does. It got Momentum and U-Turn. It's got really good coverage moves on both sides, which is nice. It can set up screens. It does a lot of stuff. Thunder Wave, Trick. I think that this thing can actually really be pretty beneficial to the team, it's kind of a Swiss Army knife in some ways. And the drawback is that I'm not sure there's like any one thing that does super duper well. Like I know Azov is really good offensively, Uxie is really good defensively, and this thing kind of tries to do both but doesn't do either quite as well. But I think that we can make it work pretty well on the team if we bring the right sets. And it being a tier 4 means I don't really feel pressured to bring this thing every week. But just having a third Stealth Rock option to pair with Swampert and Diancie is really nice. All three are kind of lower tiered Pokemon. Swampert's 3, the other 2 are 4. But together with the 3 options, I think one of them should be able to come each week. So this thing also, I think I already said this, but it gets Healing Wish. So another Healing Wish user that's not quite as passive as Audino is really nice to have too. So that rounds out the team. Let's see. So I like the team. I think it's actually probably one of the best teams I've ever drafted, which isn't necessarily saying a lot. I don't draft the best teams as a rule. The best team I probably drafted was PBL Season 2, but that team had some real issues still. I think its highest speed tier was base 100 with like Staraptor and maybe some other stuff. So yeah, I think that this team is pretty solid. It's got some good cores. It's got really good priority options. It's got several hazard setters and removers. It's got some nice synergies. It's got the grounded poison. You know, it's got the spikes and T-spikes. I think that it's got intimidate. It's got a couple of electric immunities. So I really like the way that this team shaped up. I think it's actually, at least on paper, probably my best team I've ever drafted. And packed with reliable recovery too. I don't think I mentioned, oh, maybe I did mention this, but Synthesis on Delmise, you know, Scizor, Latios, Diancie, Delmise all get reliable recovery, as well as like Wish Passing Audino and Healing Wish between Audino and Mesprit in the back, and Thunderous and Toxicroak both getting abilities that can gain them health back if I make some right plays. I think this is a really solid team, so excited to be able to use it this season and bring you guys some matches. So anyway, hope that you enjoyed. My first game should be coming out soon. I've actually already played it. I'm a little bit late getting this thing out, so I'll do the team builder and then the recap for that. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.